We will try to learn one more component from this our toolbox, that is grid view. So let's drag it in our form. And this grid view we will use to list our data that we had done the store in our database. So to load the data, first we need to bring a control that can load the data, or we can load the data and can list over here. So in order to load the data in this data grid view, the first thing that we do, as you know, we have to rename it. So data grid view. But for now, as we are showing the demo, if we not do the rename also, it's okay. So this is the data grid view. So as we created a store procedure to get all the data from the database yesterday, now it's time to consume that. So to consume that, what we do, we will create another function that will bring a set of data in our C#. How we do that? It's very easy. And today also we are writing a pure C# ADODOTNET code in our employee data provider over here. So we'll add a one function named as execute procedure return data set. So the return type of this method is data set, and basically data set is the collection of data table with relations. So it can hold lot of tables in memory. So in this method, we have two parameters. One is for the procedure name and one is for the parameter that we need to pass for the store procedure. And what we are doing, we had created a one data set with null value and we are passing the connection. We created a command and this is the adapter. This is little bit different one. SQL data adapter generally work in two mode. One is connected model and one is disconnected model. The one that we are going to use, this is disconnected model. So it is very similar to our multiplug. So if we use a multiplug, we can bring a power from the socket so that we can plug a lot of our devices within that multiplug, right? So this data adapter is similar kind of thing that can bring a lot of data from database. So we are created an object of SQL data adapter and we are passing a command with store procedure and we are supplying the name and we are checking if the parameters are not null, then pass the parameter 2 and then get the data in the our result. So what we are doing, the result is null previously, and then we are doing this SQL data adapter is going to fill the result within our data set. So once the filling of data is done in the data set, it will return that data set from this method. And one thing you notice here, we had assigned the value null, but when we are reaching at this point, we are then only assigning the value new data set. So why we are doing kind of this, like there is a norms, acquire resource as late as possible and release the resource as early possible. So when we created a data set with null, it is not going to acquire any value in the memory. But when we had done this new operation, now this data set have a value in the memory. And after that, what we are going to do, we are going to fill that with the data. So in this way, we are getting the data from the database. And now when we are able to get the data, what we do, we will return a data table. One is with all the data and one is with a data by ID. So I'm going to consume this method with these two methods. So one method is get all employee. So I'm declaring a variable to store the store procedure name that we created yesterday. And I'm passing the SQL parameter null. I just shown you when we not have to pass the parameter, we'll declare the value null. And then what we are doing, we are calling that method I just explained you with store procedure name and the parameter, and we are getting the value in the data table from the this data set. As I told you, data set is a collection of tables, but in our store procedure, we are returning only one table, and that will come in index 0. So I'm just fetching that table uh, within this our data table and returning this from here. And other method that I had written, this will return a single row data table by ID, as we had written yesterday, the store procedure. So again, we are doing the same thing, but this time we are passing a user ID in the SQL parameter and calling the same method for the data set. And we are getting that single row table in our data table and returning the data table. So now the work for the data collection is done. Now we need to bind this data in our this designing form. So what we have to do, first thing, right click on this form, go to in your properties, and there is a method. These are the property and these are the events. So we need to create a method form load so that when our form get loaded, we will load our data. So in this method, and this is actually event handler and named as form load. And you can see these are, they have a special parameters, sender as an object and E as a event argument. So now we need to call our uh, those methods that we created. So one is that we need to call for the form load. I'm just going to bring a small snippet so that it will be a little bit faster. So what we'll do, we'll create a object of employee data provider, and then as this method is returning data table, we create the object of data table. So we hold a data table, and what we are doing, we are assigning a data source of this data grid view. As I shown you, we had just added a one control, and the name of this control, what we had done, left a default, and the name is data grid view 1. So what we are doing, we are assigning a data source with this DT. So data source assignment is done, but we have to call this function within this form load. So we can do same thing. We can write this code over here, but as we are separating everything every time, so I created a function so that I can reuse this code when we need, and we need it very soon. But for now, let's check, can we bind that data grid view with this code? So this will definitely going to return some data from our database that we have in our table. And this is the output, guys. We are able to list the data from the database. So these are the IDs and first name, last name. We have only this value in our database. Now, if I have to load one row within this form, how can I do? So I'm planning, if someone do the double click in any of these cells, that row's data will be loaded over here. So how we do that? Let's try it. What we do, we will go in our form designer, and what we do, we'll create an event for that. So this is our form, and right click on this, go to properties. In the properties, find out this event tag. Within that event tag, what we want to create, we need to find a cell double click. So here we have a cell double click. Once we do the double click, the event handler is created and the method is over here. Now it's ready. So we have to write some code so that we can get uh, the row ID that user had done the double click. So for that, what we can do, as we need to get the row ID or user ID. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to declare one public variable as a user ID equal to 0. And what I will do, I will get the value from the data grid row. So what I'm doing, from data grid view 1 with rows and row index, E is event argument that is coming from here, and it will provide us index when user do the double click. So we get the row index, and with that index, I'm going to get the value of cell 0. As I shown you in the first column, we have our ID. So with row index, cell 0 value I'm holding in our user ID. And if that user ID is not equal to 0, then I want to get the data by user ID that we had created another one. So let's create a method that will call our another method of the data provider, which will return a data by ID. So this is the method that I created. So what I'm doing, creating an object of employee data provider and calling the getEMP by user ID, holding that value in data table. And what I'm doing over here, I'm going to check if data table is not null, then here we have a one new code called as for each. It is very similar to your for loop that you do in your JavaScript or in C or C++. So how we write for loop? For loop is kind of for INTI. So this one had written the syntax. This is the syntax for the for loop. So for loop, what we do, we do the initialization and we provide a condition till when, and we do the increment or decrement for the initialization value, and we do the operation. In the for each loop, what we are doing, we are getting the data row from this data table that we are getting from the database. So for each row, what I am going to do, I'm from that row, I'm getting the value of column 1 and column 2 over here and loading that value in our text box so that we can see it when user do the double click within that. So in this way, we are loading that data in our text box. So this is the name of text box, and in the property of text, we are setting the value first name and last name. And remember why I had done this user ID as a public variable so that I can use it for the update purpose as well. So for now, we had done the load of that data in our form. And one more thing, we already had written the code for the save. So if someone added the data, if we do the rebind in our grid, as soon as user finish the data save button, they can get uh, do the refresh of our data grid. So how we will do that? We need to find out the method of that button click, that employee save button. So after saving it, what we will do? We will call the method bind data grid method again so that it will refresh our grid. Let's check it. So our form is ready with the data. Let's first me add one data. Let's say Ajay Pandey, and if I will do the save, we will have a new row over here. It is loaded now. If I want to load data from, let's say, row number 7, if I do the double click, the data is loaded over here. So if I want to edit it and want to press the save button, if I will do that, I have to call another method that will do the update job. So let's build that method also in our employee data provider and let's try it. So for now, we are able to load the data in the data grid view, and we are able to load that data in our data grid view. Now, in employee data provider, we have to create one more method very similar to add employee. We need to call our store procedure for the update. So what we'll do, we will copy this method and we do the little bit change within that. What we do, we copy this one, and first we have to rename it with the name update. Now we have to add one more parameter for the where clause, and we need to check in our store procedure what we actually need that we created yesterday. So we have store procedure over here, and the parameter name is our user ID, data type integer. So this one is going to have a int, and for the SQL DB type, we need to find our int, so integer, and here we have to supply the value dot user ID. Now it's ready, and we have to change the store procedure name as well. So what is the name of our update store procedure is this one. So we will change the name. It's done. After that, what we do, we'll open the connection and we do the execute non-query, because we not have to return anything. We just have to update it. So our method is ready. So now we have to call this method from the button click of save. So this is our save button click. What we will do, we need to call a method named as now we have to add the condition. If user ID that we created in public equal 0, then do the add, else what to do? Do the update method, and for the update what we do? We need a data provider object. So we can create another function, or we can do over here. For simplicity, I'm just going to add in directly everything over here, and this with this, and we have to pass our employee. But as you can see, we not have the value of our employee over here. So what we can do, we can write all this logic within our save function for now. So what I will do, I will go in our save function. What I will say, do everything that you are doing for now, but before going here, we will check the condition. If user ID equal 0, then do the add, else do the update. So for the update, what we do, we have to change this one as an update. So update SU by employee, but when we need an update, we have to set the user ID. So dot user ID equals this is small user ID that will be set when user do the double click, right? But after update, what we'll do? We'll set this user ID equals 0 so that again if someone try to type new value, they can do it. And when the update is done, what is we have to do? We have to clear our text box, all right? So for the clear, we already written the code in the cancel, this one. So in place of writing everything over here, if I can create a function like public, or you can say private, because nowhere we are going to use this one, private void, and we say clear form, and with that we'll type our code here, and we will call this method over here. And what we can do again, call this method up just after the save is complete. So what we do, uh, we can call, no matter it is the add or update, we need to clear it. So once the save is complete, we can clear the form. And now we not need this condition over here, as we written everything in the save method. Now everything is done for the edit. Let's check it. So if we'll run it, let's see what happened. We'll get the same output now, but let's say I want to edit this Ram Kumar. I do the double click, the data is loaded. But now I will say this is not a Kumar. This is something, what to say, Karki. And if you do the press, the value of row number 10 is changed, right? So we are able to do the update as well. And again, if I will try to add new value, let's say Dinesh Singh, and I'll do the save. This time we'll get the new row, because our if condition is working over here. If ID is equal to 0, then do everything